If you miss a line in the game, you reset. You miss it on the track, you could die.
Nobody seemed to talk about the movie Gran Turismo on its release. What people did talk about was its strange and terrible marketing. When I first saw the poster, I thought the movie was called From Gamer to Racer. But no, this is the only film whose tagline is twice the size of the title on the poster. And that concept is a decently interesting premise. A regular person without professional driving experience becomes so good at a simulation game that they attempt to become a competitive racer. But that's not really what the movie was sold on. Instead, what the marketing tried to sell you on was that this actually happened. They even changed the name in the middle of marketing from Gran Turismo to Gran Turismo based on a true story. More than 2/3 of the title are dedicated to making sure that you know this took place in real life. You know how movie theaters have cardboard cutouts so you can take a picture with a superhero or Barbie or whatever? Well, Gran Turismo based on a true story wrote a whole goddamn novel on a piece of cardboard to explain the events of the movie. This is, to put it charitably, quite unique. Most of the time, marketing is trying to sell you on the plot, the characters, or the spectacle. But Gran Turismo based on a true story instead uniquely markets itself on the promise of a realistic representation of actual events. And by representation, I don't mean the diversity of its cast, which, just to be clear, is a good thing to have. Instead, it's advertising an accurate representation of the actual events in real life. Gran Turismo based on a true story is a simulation, just like the video game Gran Turismo, the simulation racing game. That's right, I'm not just being a dork about it, there's a point to me saying the whole title. I gotta differentiate the movie from the game. What's interesting is that this marketing, this appeal to reality, is so similar to the themes of the movie. The movie starts out with what seems like a video game advertisement explaining that Gran Turismo is, quote, the world's most accurate racing simulator. I do not know how true this is. I have never played Gran Turismo, I have never driven a race car, and I do not intend to do either anytime soon. The only word that matters in this phrase is the noun at the end. Simulator. What follows is a marketing executive selling this idea to a room of businessmen. Selling the idea that you can get a gamer, a person who is experienced in the simulator Gran Turismo, a simulation of racing, and put that person in a real competition to drive a real race car. And you can see what's happening here, right? Representation is being sold to you, sold to the consumers, and even sold to themselves. But then come the skeptics. Jack, David Harbour's character, is a real racer. He's actually driven a race car. And he disagrees with the idea that this is an accurate simulation.
You really think that you're gonna put some kid who's been playing a game in his bedroom into a 200-mile-an-hour rocket? It'll tear him to pieces.
This is the question that drives the tension of the film. Is Gran Turismo an accurate simulation? Can a gamer become a racer? Jan, our resident gamer, has a personal stake in this idea. His daddy doesn't believe in the value of playing video games like Jan does.
You can learn from your younger brother if you practice football half as much as you play this damn game.
I don't like football, Dad. Didn't you say always do something you love?
Yes. I did, but I meant within the realm of reality.
The value must then come from tying the game to reality, bridging the gap between the virtual game and the tangible reality it claims to represent. This is representational thinking. The idea that value comes from how well something represents something else, instead of having value on its own. So, it becomes a bit of a problem when they discover differences between simulation and reality. Differences between the video game and actually racing a car. Most notably, the lack of physicality within Gran Turismo.
I wasn't prepared for just how physical the demands of the car were going to be.
The movie admits that Gran Turismo is not an accurate simulation. Sure, the movie says, the same things may be happening in the virtual space, but it won't give you the same sensations as actual racing will. But this doesn't stop the main characters. We then get your typical second act of a sports film. Keep driving, don't give up, ignore the setbacks, and if you just keep trying, you can win.
You puked on my lawn.
But there's an interesting additional dimension to this in Gran Turismo. Jan isn't just fighting for himself, for the competitive drive, or even for his country. He's fighting for the concept of the simulation. His rival doesn't have a personal grudge with Jan, but instead insults the idea of a gamer being in the race.
Should have never been on that track.
The most suppressed class of all. Jan feels he has the knowledge to win. He just needs the physical and emotional endurance to persevere. He has a personal investment now. He needs the idea that the simulation is able to accurately model the real to be true. Because if it's not, Jan really is just a gamer. He can't win, not in the real world. During the final climactic race, Jan is given a path to drive along, which is widely considered the most efficient way to complete the track. And he does for a while, but then there's only a few more laps left and he's behind. He needs to try something different, a Hail Mary. So he tries a new path, one that he used in the video game. And it works. He wins. The strength of Gran Turismo is not that it is an accurate representation of real life. Instead, the movie argues that Gran Turismo is better than real life. That Jan would not have won if he didn't use his video game strategy. The racer trained on the simulation has beaten the racer trained on the real. Not only that, but the simulation has replaced the real. And this is an interesting move, isn't it? Reality used to be valued over the simulation. The real is something that should triumph over the game. But instead, the game, the simulation, has triumphed precisely because it does not accurately represent real life. Which makes the ending very strange. The last scene of the movie is a montage, showing the real versions of the character of the movie side by side with each other. It shows real photos and tells the real story of these real-life people. Just like the scene at the beginning of the movie showing how the game Gran Turismo was made, it shows how the movie Gran Turismo, based on a true story, was made. It shows all the work that goes into creating the CGI and sound effects, scanning and recording real cars in order to make it as realistic as possible. It is, ironically, a movie striving for authenticity in its portrayal of a simulated reality. It wants the real to triumph over the simulation, and I hope this doesn't surprise you, but a film is not an accurate simulation of real life. A film has acting, editing, cinematography, and music. It inherently produces a completely different effect than a real person's lived experience as a racer. Additionally, the film's marketing strategy, with its relentless emphasis on the narrative's basis in reality, serves a similar role. Our culture is increasingly saturated with simulations and signs that often take precedence over the tangible, authentic experiences they purport to represent. Gran Turismo, based on a true story, both reflects and contributes to this, showcasing how the allure of reality, even if it is constructed, can shape narratives and impact our perceptions. In the end, the movie leaves us with an interesting paradox. A narrative supposedly based on reality that culminates in the triumph of the simulated. This narrative twist prompts us to reconsider the nature of our desires and expectations in a world where simulations not only imitate, but also influence and even surpass the real. But it also proves that Gran Turismo, based on a true story, itself doesn't represent anything in particular. If it does represent anything, it represents itself, Gran Turismo. It is a commodity that sells itself on the idea that it signifies something, but that something doesn't matter. You can sell a signifier, you can sell a simulation, but you can't sell the signified, the real.